do you say? What do you know? It's the full Monte Sports Show. It is Sunday, May 30th, 2021. I am your host, Monte Perez, aka the Sports Whisperer. I want to thank everyone for tuning in last week. We had 33 states across the country watch the full Monte Sports Show. And when you type in Sports Show under your Google search on YouTube, we are number 3. As you can see here, we are number 3 behind Norm Macdonald and a couple other sports shows. Our goal is to do this 5 days a week, and I can only do that with your help. So how do we manage that? How do we get the show to get more viewers, get more popular? It's real simple. One, tell a family member, tell a friend, and then, of course, give us the thumbs up on this show and subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts YouTube channel. Again, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts YouTube channel, and we will reach those goals quicker than anticipated. We have the best guests all across the country, and this week is no exception. We're having some guys who've been on the show numerous times, guys who bring energy, passion, laughs. In about 10 minutes, John Meyer is going to join us, talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals. Then we're going to have Nuts and Bolts Sports, Bill Carroll's own draft guru, talk about the NFL draft, what rookies to watch for this year in the NFL. And then to close it out, Chris Rosvoglou, who covers the Saints, does a tremendous job. Team's kind of in a bit of a transition now. The legendary Drew Brees has retired. We will check out and see where exactly the Saints are going this year and what to expect from them. This portion of the show is brought to you by Beam Organics. Beam Organics. Go to beamorganics.com. Creates the highest quality functional supplements for better balance, performance, recovery, and sleep. Again, go to beamorganics.com and check it out. All right. Since we have 3 guests, we're going to give them all about 15, 20 minutes. There will be no opening rant. We start the show with the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with this. Nav Bhatia may not be a household name, but if you're in Toronto, you likely know him as the Raptors superfan. He is known as the Raptors superfan. Now, something happened which is so great. He's been a fixture of the team since 1995, and during the Raptors championship season, they gave him an NBA championship ring. He is such a committed fan. He is such a positive ball of energy. He has donated, get this, guys, donated and spent $300,000 a year to send thousands of kids to Raptor games. He intentionally makes people from different backgrounds, black, white, brown, rich, poor, Christian, Muslim, sit next to each other. It's almost like the UN when he has all these people come. He started it because he wanted people to bring basketball, to bring people together. He is known as the super fan. God bless him. Just a class act, doing so much for the community, so much for Raptor fans, bringing people together in a time where everyone, the country's so divided. In America, Canada, there's so much racism and everything going on in the world. He is bringing people together, and he definitely deserves. He's the definition of a good fans. The very definition of good fans. Now to the bad. So, fan is short for fanatical. And we saw this week a fan throw popcorn on Russell Westbrook. Okay? Then we saw the New York Knicks fan spit on Trae Young. Spit on Trae Young. Let me just say this. If someone spit at me at a bar, they'd be drinking out of a straw for 6 months. Okay? Now, spitting on a fan now, if this person has COVID, that could be a potential murder. I mean, Trae Young is obviously a healthy guy, but where are we at as a society when you feel that you go to a game, you can throw stuff at athletes, you could spit on them? This is disgusting. This is disgusting. But you know what? I give the Sixers and the Knicks credit. They have apologized I give the Sixers and the Knicks credit. They apologized to the Wizards. They apologized to Trae Young. Each one of these fans is now banned for life. banned for life, but it needs to go a step further. There needs to be criminal charges against these people. Assault. I know someone said, "Oh, Monte, it's popcorn. It's no big deal." No, it is a big deal because right now it's popcorn. Next, it's going to be a glass. Then it's going to be a knife. We don't know where this ends. When you spit at a player, like, again, we talk about a super fan who's bringing people in Canada together, donating and paying $300,000 a year for people of all ethnic backgrounds to go to Toronto Raptor games. And then I see this in New York, spitting on Trae Young because your team is not good enough. Again, fan is short for fanatical. Never in my life did I want to beat someone up because they were rooting for another team. And I will say this, continuing with the bad, I will say this. When your whole identity, okay, is who you voted for president, or this guy, your whole identity is dedicated to being the number one fan or the number one supporter of a president, you're a loser. You're a loser. This guy has dedicated his whole life to a team that's never won a Super Bowl. Get a life, bro. I'm not saying watch sport. I'm not saying don't watch sports. I'm not saying don't be passionate. But when your identity is supporting a president or supporting a team, that's all you have, you're a loser. What about your family? What about your friends? Go out, go to the beach, take a walk. Okay, no one, when you say I'm the number one fan, you know what I hear in my mind? You're a loser. Because there's more to life. And people who are number one fans spit on opposing players, throw popcorn or glasses or soda, say racial slurs. When your identity is nothing more than supporting blindly a team or a president, you're a loser. End of story. Okay, so that's the good, the bad, and now we have to go with the very ugly. So Urban Meyer, I'm not a fan of Urban Meyer. Let me just start off by saying that. I'm not a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguar coach because he covered up his assistant coach beating the hell out of the assistant coach. He had domestic violence. He was beating her up for years. He covered it up. And then he lied about it. And I know people who've worked for Urban Meyer. I know people who've worked for Rick Pitino. I know people who know Bill Belichick. They are control freaks. Anything that happens, they know about. They know about the coach's kids, families, whatever. Urban Meyer knew that his assistant coach was beating the hell out of his wife, and he did nothing. So right then and there, I'm not a fan of Urban Meyer. But now Urban Meyer says that Tim Tebow is going to take snaps in the red zone and on third down ahead of rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Urban Meyer also said that rookie running back Travis Etienne is going to spend a majority of the time at wide receiver. Travis Etienne is a very good running back. But what are we doing here? Okay, this isn't a situation, right? This isn't a situation where Drew Brees can't really run, doesn't have a strong arm, and you bring in Taysom Hill. This is a situation where Tim Tebow has sucked as a professional quarterback. He sucks as a professional quarterback. He was terrible. Completed 46% of his passes. Horrible quarterback. He hasn't played since 2012. And you're going to sit Trevor Lawrence on 3rd and 8? You're going to sit Trevor Lawrence in goal line situations, stunting the rookie's growth because you want to prove a point that this guy can play football when he can't, Urban Meyer? Trevor Lawrence is a better runner than Tebow. Trevor Lawrence is a better passer than Tim Tebow. Why the hell is this? Urban Meyer, listen, again, we talk about fans. I cannot root for Jacksonville went 1-15. If they go 1-15 this year, I'm going to be angry. I want them to go 0-17. You're going to put in Tim Tebow, who sucks as a quarterback, to try to prove some point that everyone in the NFL was wrong about him when you have possibly the best quarterback to come out of the draft, talent-wise, since John Elway? Good luck with that. Good luck with that, Urban Meyer. Good luck with that. And again, I'll end with this before we get John Meyer on. I'll end with this. Tim Tebow's not faster than Trevor Lawrence. He's not a better runner. He's not a better thrower. It's like taking out Derek Jeter for like a AAA shortstop late in games. What? To prove some point that Tim Tebow belongs in the NFL? Urban Meyer, I hope you lose every game by 50 points because I can't stand what you're doing right now to the good people of Jacksonville. All right. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, before we get John on, let's do something that we love to do. Let's surf the crowd. Yes. Yes, it is. Tebow in the red zone on third down. Yes. Yes. And I know, yes, banned for life. I agree with you. It is easy to sneak in, but if they get criminal charges and they serve jail time, that may prevent other people from doing it. So, yes, keep the comments coming. We love having them. Again, make sure you subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Let's bring on one of our favorite guests. John Meyer, how are you? Been a while. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Let's get right into this. I want to go rapid fire here because it's been a crazy offseason so far. Let's put up your Chiefs background there to make
you go.
I like the hat. I like the setup in the background. Let's focus on that. You got the Kansas City flag and you got the Royals flag there. Talk about that background. You did that yourself?
No, that's completely the wife. Right. So, yeah, we got Chiefs, Royals, and we got the Kansas City Monarchs.
I love it.
Yeah.
Looks very good. Okay, so for the average fan who just sees Kansas City, in the playoffs, they don't watch every game, talk about not including the draft, things you like this offseason, and players coming back who missed COVID or players they signed.
So I don't know if anybody watched the last game that the Chiefs played in, but they did not play extremely well. And there was one area in particular where they did not play well at all, and that was the offensive line. So the Chiefs and Brett Veach in the front office spent a lot of time, resources, and draft capital to shore that up a little bit. So the first day of free agency, they went out and got the best guard on the market in Joe Thuney. Spent a lot of money to do it, but I've said multiple times, if you have a Maserati or a Bugatti, you might want to insure that a little bit.
Exactly, guys.
So Joe Thuney, Kyle Long were in the first week of things. Kyle Long came out of retirement after taking last year off, and is fighting for a roster spot and a starting spot on the Chiefs. My favorite signing that the Chiefs did was Jarran Reed. When he was teamed up with Frank Clark in Seattle, both of them had career seasons. So bringing that pass rush from the interior defensive line should shore things up on a weakness that we've seen deeper into the playoffs. Frank Clark had a bad season all the way around, but maybe teaming Chris Jones and Jarran Reed up in the middle will take some of the pressure off the edge there to create that pass rush. They released both of their bookend tackles from the last 5 seasons, and Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher, both of them coming off significant injuries. Eric Fisher has since signed with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, but that wasn't a shock, right? That wasn't a shock, right?
That wasn't a shock financially. I was surprised that Indy gave him 9.2 coming off an Achilles injury.
Gave him a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah. I was saying most of the offseason that he would re-sign with Kansas City after they got the medicals in back. But, Indy was willing to take a flyer, and, protecting Carson Wentz's blind side there might pay off well for both of them. The big signing or the big trade in Kansas City this offseason was for Orlando Brown, and I didn't see that one coming anywhere.
No, shocking.
I don't know why a team that's chasing the Kansas City Chiefs are willing to give up an asset that makes the Chiefs ultimately better. The pessimists are saying that he hasn't played significant time on the left side. The guy's a giant of a man, and I'll take a 24-year-old Orlando Brown, hoping that he has a really good season, and then pay him the big bucks coming in next offseason. So I think the Chiefs have got
the doctor's coming back, right?
Yeah, the doctor's coming back. We'll see if he has a starting spot. There's going to be a lot of competition on that right side. We've mentioned Kyle Long, who can slide in there and play that right guard position as well. We got Lucas Niang, who's coming off an opt out, who had some medical stuff coming out of TCU a year ago, battling for spots over there. Mike Rimmers as well. Nick Allegretti, who's been, and Andrew Wiley, both who spent time at that right guard position. So the feel-good story would be that the Canadian doctor slides right in there, takes over after a year of helping a lot of people up in Canada. But he's going to have competition there.
No, definitely. But that's what you want, especially for an offensive line that was plagued with injuries and struggled, especially late in the postseason. So you want that competition. I'm excited about the draft. I don't know how you felt how they did, but let's just walk through it. With the 58th pick, Nick Bolton, what do you like about this guy?
I like Nick Bolton. He's a thumper. He's not the biggest guy and he's not the fastest guy, but he has football instincts that you just can't teach.
What I read is he's got nose for the ball. So for those who don't know what that is,
you watch some of the tape from Mizzou, and when he hits you, you're hit. It's not none of that lackadaisical weenie linebacker football that we're accustomed to in Kansas City for some reason. We just haven't found big hitting linebackers, and that's what I like about him. Spags has a pretty complex defense for linebackers, and I don't know if they're ready to put the green dot on him and let him roam in the middle from the starting linebacker position with Anthony Hitchens still there, at least this season. But I like the future with Nick Bolton and Willie Gay Jr. at the linebacker spots in Kansas City.
Yeah, I thought that was a good pick, solid pick. And again, one of the things I look for in the draft, especially the teams that don't have a high pick, is you basically don't have to have a sexy pick, but sexy is not always the right thing to do in the draft. And I got to tell you, when Creed Humphreys got drafted, I was like, oh my goodness. My brother Pete has been talking about this kid for 2 years, not just because he's a very good center. He was calling plays for Oklahoma as a freshman, which you don't see a lot of, but he's a former wrestler, so he has great balance. In some drafts, they said he might have snuck late first round. I think Creed Humphreys could be a starter in the NFL for 10 years. I am so high on this kid. Do you agree with me, or am I overrating him?
I agree with you. I was petitioning at 58 for them to take Creed Humphrey. When they went Bolton, I understood the need there. And the rich got richer with Creed Humphrey. If that's the guy snapping Patrick Mahomes the ball for the next 5 seasons under a rookie contract, that's something that we should be rejoicing for here in Kansas City. The guy started for 3+ years at Oklahoma, can snap the ball with both hands, which apparently is a cool thing. Andy Reid really enjoys. I don't know. I'm not.
Were you shocked that he was available? Because I honestly thought he'd be a late first round, early second.
The best center in this draft.
Right.
People say that his run blocking is a little weak. Well, who cares in Kansas City? We don't run the football. But he had 2,500 pass snaps and didn't give up a sack. So that's what I like about Creed Humphrey.
So you wouldn't have been upset if they took him earlier?
Yeah, I would have been happy at 58 with them taking him and seeing what dropped them. People in Kansas City were one wide receiver at 58 or 63. We'll talk a little more about that. I think the Chiefs are going to go wide receiver by committee going forward, replacing Sammy Watkins and things like that. But Creed Humphrey at that second pick, which we got from Baltimore in that trade with Orlando Brown. The fact that Baltimore gave us something back, and a somewhat premium pick at 58 for that. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the third pick. Listen again. I look at this team and I say to myself, okay, you're going to score, but
Mhm.
there's going to be times if you play the Cleveland Browns where they're going to run, you got to get stops. I'm not saying that Los Angeles Chargers are on that level yet, but they should have a much better offense with Justin Herbert second. So you need
Absolutely.
playmakers on defense. Did you like this pick in the 4th round going with the Florida State edge rusher?
It makes sense. I'm not going to say that I like the pick because I don't like projects for a team that really just needs to add depth at this point in time.
Right.
But in the 4th round, it makes a lot of sense because he has 5-star tools. He had 2-star production at Florida State is the sad part of it. And he had a lot of coaching turnover at Florida State. You can make excuses, but generally talent rises, and it just hasn't reached for Joshua Kendo. Maybe getting here in Kansas City, having some structure, having, defensive coaches who just stuck around here for the last 4 or 5 seasons will solidify him. He doesn't have to produce day one. The Chiefs are pretty entrenched with their 4-man rotation on the edge, and I think Chris Jones is going to kick out there sometime. So you really have a 5-man rotation there. He's going to be a situational player in the beginning, and if he can get to the quarterback, kind of like a Taco Charlton or something like that early on in his career, I think the Chiefs are going to welcome that because they lost Tano Passigno, and what Tano Passigno brought to the Chiefs was very little. So that's the kind of production and expectation that I have for Joshua, in year 1, maybe year 2. So we have some time to work with that. So I'm not upset with the pick. There were other players on the board that I would have rather taken in that position. But you go with what Brett Veach thought was the best in that position, and we'll see how it works.
I gave the Chiefs a B- with the draft. Is that a fair assessment? Am I too low or too high?
I think it's a fair assessment. I think there's a couple players who could be steals later on in the draft that they picked up. Cornell Powell, the wide receiver out of Clemson. I think if he was 21 instead of 23 going on 24, he would have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick. But you want some maturity from that position because it is a rather young group of wide receivers that the Chiefs have. And
let's be honest, in that offense, it's going to be sink or swim because if you don't shine, he's going to Tyreek Hill, he's going to Travis Kelce. So right away Patrick Mahomes has to have confidence in you right away. So you need maturity, not someone who's going to struggle with the playbook.
Yeah, so and it's going to be Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are going to get their production. It's who's going to be that 3rd guy when teams want to double those 2 up, who's going to have a big day. And over the last couple of years, Sammy Watkins would have a day, then Demarcus Robinson would have a day, McCole would have his day, one of the running backs would eat up, and so it's not a consistent production over 17 games that you're looking for. You're just looking for somebody who's willing to step up for 2 or 3 games a season. And, I think the talent is there. It's a matter of learning the playbook and being comfortable with Patrick Mahomes, like you said, Monte.
And you talk about Sammy Watkins here. Sammy Watkins, I compare him to Danny Green of the 76ers. Obviously, Sammy Watkins has much more talent than Danny Green and a little bit more consistent. But you go 2 or 3 games and you look at the box scores, it's 2 catches, 1 catches. And then he'll go off for 9 catches, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. Is this a big loss for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Name-wise, it's a big loss. Outside of that, it's really not. You look at his production, it's 45 catches, 500, 600, 700 yards tops, and 6 TDs. Like, you can get that from McCole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson or Byron Pringle. Like and you could guarantee just mark 6 games out in the season that he wasn't going to play because he just was always injured. And I'm not saying that he wasn't injured in those times, but there would be an ankle or a calf that would just linger all season long, and you would see somebody else. Patrick Mahomes was running around on a broken foot for half the season, and some people's pain tolerance and dedication are higher than others. And probably Sammy's probably going to go out and ball out in Baltimore this year and have a 1,500-yard season, and we're all going to boo-hoo in Kansas City that we let Sammy have.
Yeah, no, it's true. But again, like I said, like you could replace. My biggest concern with Sammy Watkins is when he was healthy, he was an absolute speed guy with Tyreek Hill, so you couldn't leave him alone. And like I said, he's going to have 2 or 3 games where it's 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, 50-yard pass play. So him just being on the field was and is a threat. But you're saying they're going to go with wide receiver by committee. And let me just get some of these comments here. Joe says, busy day in the world of barbecue, but we still have the full Monte show. Andrea's chasing her dog around Wisconsin and watching the full Monte show. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, so who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver other than, and I'm talking strictly wide receiver, not Kelsey or the guys in the backfield at the wide receiver position?
I think McCole Hardman's going to get the biggest shot at it. You used a lot of draft capital. You used the 2nd round pick on him, so you got to think that he's going to get the first chance.
And he has talent. He has some big games.
There's no doubt. And if anybody watched that little foot race between him and the other 3 there, or Diggs and whoever else was in that race, he ran a 4.22.
Yeah.
I know running fast and catching a football with pads on are a couple different things, but that's world-class speed there. And so if you can get the ball in his hands, he can make plays. And
so you're comfortable with him being the number 2 wide receiver?
Out of the options that we have, I am comfortable with him being the number, because truthfully, Travis Kelce is the number 2 wide receiver.
Right.
So, and he's just coming off the greatest season a tight end has ever had. So, there's little to worry about. My biggest thing is I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is bound to have a really, really good season from the receiving game. So I think that's where some of the production is going to get picked up. The big thing that Sammy Watkins did that was very underrated, he was an excellent down the field pass blocker.
Yeah,
so
very good blocker, physical.
You could run that screen game. You could, do those short little outs with Watkins or Hardman that, would normally be an 8-yard play that turned into a 25 or 30-yard play because Sammy was just pushing somebody out of the way.
Great point there. John, all right, John, so look, let's move to this, because I think when I look at this team, AFC championship should be the bare minimum. Okay. But are there certain teams that have improved? I look at this Browns team and I'm like, whoa, they had them on the ropes a little bit for last year, and the Browns have improved drastically. I still don't believe in Baker Mayfield in a big game, but they have so much talent around him. What team in the AFC scares you a little bit?
I'm with you 100% with the Browns. I've written about it a couple times. Baker's going to have to make some improvements. That's definitely. But they went out and just poached the secondary from the Los Angeles Rams, and that's where they needed to get better on the defensive side. They upgraded their pass rush. A healthy OBJ is going to help Baker in some of those things, and they have the best run game in all the NFL with that two-headed monster.
And John, I think Pro Football Focus, I have them, I think 3rd. I think Pro Football Focus has them 1 as an offensive line now.
Okay, yeah. So what they have 4 Pro Bowlers last year?
Yes,
on the
I mean, how good is this team on offense and defense now?
Yeah. But Kansas City put up a decent pass rush in that AFC divisional game.
They did
against that team. So Baker is the catalyst of that. If he improves, if he makes a jump like Josh Allen did this past season, they are going to challenge for an AFC title. They had every opportunity to take the Chiefs out in that divisional game. Kansas City just let them back into that game, and Chad Henne put it away.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. One of the best play calls I've seen. All right, so John, I'm going to ask every guest on today's show, where are these 2 guys going? Obviously, you could tell by my background, I'm a Packer fan, but I want Aaron Rodgers to leave. And where do you see Julio Jones going?
I don't think Aaron Rodgers is leaving Green Bay this season. I just don't think it makes any sense. If I were to venture a guess, like the most likely scenario is Denver.
Right.
But
they're saying now Miami. 2 first-round picks and some defensive players, and Rodgers goes to Miami.
Okay, Matthew Stafford got 2 first-round picks. Are
Yeah.
you comparing Matthew
No,
Stafford and Aaron
I'm just
Rodgers?
telling you the talk here in Miami.
Nothing you can offer Green Bay makes any sense.
Right,
You
right.
know, they drafted Jordan Love in the first round, and he can't even make the active roster.
Yeah, that's
So
terrible.
there's no.
Well, that's why, which shows you what a travesty that draft pick was, because they
Yeah.
moved up to get him. They got him in the first round, and then he doesn't even make the practice squad. And Green Bay is saying to general managers, a quarterback must come back. So that's
Okay.
why Tua makes sense. You get
Yeah.
Tua, 2 first-round pick. The Dolphins don't care about picks. They have a plethora of picks over the next couple of years because they
Yeah.
traded away so many players. So, okay, and Julio Jones, where do you think he ends up?
That one's tough. I'm just going to go out here and I want to say Baltimore. I think they like what they got with Sammy Watkins and the kid from Minnesota that they drafted in the first round. Who else? They got Tylan Wallace in the draft too.
Yeah.
So
Listen,
you got to give Lamar some weapons. And if he can't make plays with those wide receivers, we got to think if he's going to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
So
But I will
think
say this:
make or break year. He's going to go somewhere. He wants to play for a contender.
here's what I say: Packers could solve all their problems by trading away a number 1 pick and bringing in Julio Jones, and Rodgers will be in camp the next week.
Well, make it happen. I want to see that Sunday night game between Kansas City and Green Bay with Julio Jones and Aaron Rodgers here in Kansas City.
That will be fun. All right, we're talking with John Meyer here live on the Full Monty Sports Show. John talked about the NFL. Now let's talk about the Kansas City Royals. Listen, battling for 500, not exactly one, not exactly. Listen, my Knicks are 25, and I mean my Mets are 25 and 20 in their first place. So it really depends on the division. But this division's better than most people think. What do you like about this team so far? What don't you like?
What I like is that there's a lot of good young pitching. And that's capital that can really help when you want to build a roster, especially one that's going to compete, towards the end of the season. Just the offense it's terrible. Jorge Soler, who a couple seasons ago almost hit 50 home runs, and now he's hitting $175 and just looks completely lost. Salvador Perez is having a decent season, but Whit Merrifield, who is kind of the heart and soul of this team, is looking lost at the plate too, not doing super great defensively. We finally got back Alberto Mondesi, who is the best player on the roster. He just can never stay healthy and put it all together simultaneously. He had a really good month of September last year, and we were hoping that would carry on over into early season this year, but then he went and missed the first 45 games of the season. So, I just don't know. The pieces that they added in the offseason have been really good. Carlos Santana's having just a really professional season where he's hitting the ball extremely well. He's taking professional at bats. He's walking more than any Royal in recent memory has. And then Andrew Benintendi, who we got, I thought, pretty much in a steal with
Boston guy.
Yeah. I really like those two pieces. There's a lot that needs to be added to this team before you could really consider them to be a contender. But they, like I said, they have the young arms that can be trade pieces come the deadline. If they hover around 500, I don't see how John Sherman and the brass cannot try to make a push for a playoff run.
Okay, that's my next question. Are they buyers or sellers come trade deadline?
I think it all depends how the month of June goes. If they keep on hovering right around 500, playing, decent baseball, I think they're going to try to add a power bat in a corner outfield spot. But if they have a month like they did in May, I just think they kind of stay put. That's where I think they really need to stay put. Wait till the offseason to maybe try to lure somebody in with free agent dollars instead of trying to. So
they're not going to make a splash at the trade deadline.
I don't think they are. I think they're a season away from really making a splash with anything. That month of April was super fun to watch. Them to be, what were they, 6 or 7 games above 500 at one point in time. Then you go on an 11-game losing streak, and there was a 7-game homestand in there where they lost every single game.
Every game.
I love watching baseball. It's probably my favorite sport to watch in person, that and hockey. But when your team is playing poorly, it's hard to shell out some decent dollars to go watch them. So,
it's not cheap. It's not cheap. You get food, parking, everything. It's not cheap to go to a game.
Yeah, we're always going to go to Royals games here in our household, but for the average Kansas City fan who wants to go to the ballpark on a Saturday afternoon, it's gonna cost some money, and if the quality of baseball on the field is not good, it's hard to do that. There's a problem in baseball right now. It's just not a really good product across the board. It's strikeouts and home runs, and that's it.
My dad complains all the time that actually Francisco Lindor, who the Mets acquired from Cleveland last year, he's making $34 million. He actually bunted the ball for a base hit. Next time up, he hits a home run, and that may finally get him going because he, like you said, you have a guy who hit 50 home runs who's batting 185. Lindor's batting like 187.
Yeah.
So, and he's getting $34 million a year. But to me with baseball is I love what they're doing with the doubleheader. It's 7 innings. Yeah. Baseball should play 130 games. This way, players aren't sitting all the time, or on a Sunday or a Monday, and they should play 7-inning games. They'll never do that because of TV revenue or dollars, but it should be a 7-inning game because it's too long and boring to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Sundays should always be 7-inning doubleheaders. Have a travel day every Thursday. Go to a 140-game schedule. You're losing the young fan in baseball. And we were at the ballpark and it was old guys I like to sit down next to an old timer and talk baseball, but the young fan is not there. Hopefully I can keep Jude and an interest with baseball going forward. That's something that we can share in the future.
No, I agree with you. Baseball needs to they'll never do it, but they need to make some changes because baseball, like football, they've changed like 30 rule changes to improve the offense. The NBA, the same thing. With baseball, is they just want to hold on to the tradition and they're not evolving at all.
Just the way they market the baseball, or not baseball, football and basketball anymore. The schedule release? How many people watch the schedule release? They'll just make these national holidays all the time, and people buy in all the time. The draft, a 3-day event. You have record numbers every year watching that. NBA is just with adding in the play-in games there, you're just creating more revenue and people watching that. The NBA regular season is far too long in my opinion.
But same thing. Same with hockey. It's too long.
Hockey, baseball, basketball. Go about 70% of what you're doing, and you might draw a little more interest. The NFL can't do any wrong. That's just been proven.
Because John, it's like college football. Every game matters. Every game matters. You lose a game in Major League Baseball in June, 1-0. No one cares. The Lakers go on a 3-game losing streak because LeBron's sitting out. No one cares because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what was it? The playoff game where they had Nickelodeon doing a broadcast? Do that with a baseball game, Saturday afternoon baseball game, and have a couple kid broadcasters. Like you're going to get people watching it. You're going to get somebody who's never watched a baseball game before going to be like, I want to do this.
Yeah,
and, just change it up a little bit. MLB, I know they won't.
MLB is the only company in America that doesn't target a young audience.
No,
they don't care.
They want 65-year-old guys who are kicking back in Florida, smoking a cigar, drinking some bourbon. But there's a lot bigger market out there.
Listen, I live in Florida. We got much more worse problems than that. So, all right, John, we love having you on. How can we follow you? How can we support you with your blog and your coffee and all that good stuff?
Okay, well, you see my Twitter handle up there. That's where I'm doing most of my social media. You mentioned my blog, chiefscoffeecorner.food.blog. We're looking into turning that into a video blog this year, something a little more modern where I don't have to sit down and write something out, just enjoying some coffee with some coffee people and enjoying some Chiefs football with some sports guys. I recently started writing for Arrowhead Live.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, we're just a small, sports website focused on the Chiefs. Go figure.
Yeah, no, that's great. And
So
they have a lot of followers
just
on
like
social media.
me, with not a whole lot of formal training in sports writing, but we're out there writing about the Chiefs, and we're just getting our foot into foot media. So please check us out at Arrowhead Live. A bunch of great writers doing a lot of good things and putting out a lot of content each and every week.
Now, when you say you might be doing video blogging, would it be like a 20-minute show, something like I
Yeah,
have, but like
30
that?
minutes, something like you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, just have a coffee guest on, have a Chiefs guest on, and we'll talk about the coffee that we're drinking. We'll talk about the Chiefs last week and this upcoming schedule. Just taking it a step further this season.
Love it, John. I told you from the first time you were on my show, anything I could do to help you promote what you're doing, feel free to put it on. I think I always retweet and read your articles anyway,
You
so
always
it's
do.
not really a problem. Thanks so much. We'll see you down the road.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Sunday.
You did.
Take care. That was John Meyer. Does a tremendous job covering the Chiefs. When we come back, Bill Carroll's going to join us, talk about the college football draft, talk about NFL and some rookie quarterbacks. You're watching the full Monte Sports Show live on YouTube.
The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours today.
So my friend Steve just tweeted me. Yeah, awesome job by John. I agree with Pam and Andrea. Awesome job by him. My friend Steve just tweeted me, and he said, why wouldn't, if you're the Cleveland Browns and you have all that talent and you have draft picks, why wouldn't you go after Aaron Rodgers and give Baker Mayfield to the Green Bay Packers? I mean, just think about that for a second. The Cleveland Browns are stacked. Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Hooper at tight end. They have two running backs in Kareem Hunt. I mean, imagine if you're Cleveland and you say, hey, we're going to go after Aaron Rodgers and we'll give you, we'll give you Odell Beckham Jr. We'll give you Baker Mayfield. We'll give you an edge rusher. I mean, think about that. I know people are saying, oh my goodness, that's never going to, but why not? Why not? What's the biggest question mark in Cleveland right now? This man, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is the biggest question mark in Cleveland. So can you imagine if Cleveland gives up Odell Beckham Jr., they give up Kareem Hunt, which you already have Andrew Jones, whatever, but you give up a defensive player and maybe one offensive lineman. Can you imagine Aaron Rodgers with the Cleveland Browns? Aaron Rodgers with the Cleveland Browns. I'm telling you right now, if that did happen, and if you want to get a third team involved, because let's say the Green Bay Packers don't want Kareem Hunt because they have Aaron Jones. They have the second-year player from Boston College, the running back. Can you imagine Aaron Rodgers, who loves playing in cold weather, goes to Cleveland? Aaron Rodgers in Cleveland. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I do it in a heartbeat. Aaron Rodgers has 3 or 4 years left in him. I mean, do we even know if Baker Mayfield will even make a Pro Bowl with all that talent? I mean, Cleveland, you want to win a title. Your biggest question mark is at quarterback position. I mean, and if you really want to go crazy, again, you probably couldn't do this with the salary cap, but if you get rid of Odell Beckham Jr., you bring in Julio Jones and you give up another draft pick. First of all, let's just talk about this for a second because this is very interesting. Because everyone, John brought up a great point. He's like, the Rams gave up 2 number ones for Sam Bradford. But if you're giving up Odell Beckham Jr. and Kareem Hunt, I'm not necessarily, and Baker Mayfield, I'm not giving you a number 1 draft pick. You're getting Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt, 2 Pro Bowl players, and a starting quarterback. Then you trade Atlanta. You give up one of those number 1s to Atlanta. Yeah, he could have a lot more than 3 first. But I just made the Cleveland Browns a championship team, an AFC championship team for the next 3 years with that deal. With that deal. Live on the Full Monty Sports Show. Let me repeat that. You trade Baker Mayfield, Kareem Hunt, and Odell Beckham Jr. for Aaron Rodgers, and then you trade a number 1 pick and you get Julio Jones. How about that? Creating that on the fly. That's what professionals do. It's what professionals do. Thank you. Finally, people, I don't think people, I like fluorescent colors. I like fluorescent colors, but people seem to like the black, the Men in Black shirt. So, yeah, and listen, if Aaron Rodgers goes there, I mean, I'm excited just thinking about it. I lived in Cleveland for a year. And you wouldn't have to give up all these number 1 picks because you're getting any team. Let me just put this out there, okay? When Aaron Rodgers didn't show up for the workouts recently, when Aaron Rodgers has said what he said, when Aaron Rodgers is in Hawaii, if I'm a general manager, I am on the phone with Green Bay saying, hey, let's work something out. Let's work something out because listen to this. Guys, you're not going to get a better deal. You're getting a starting quarterback, a Pro Bowl running back who's the backup right now behind Nick Chubb, and you're getting Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt, and Baker Mayfield. Who wouldn't do that trade? Aaron Rodgers, the relationship is over. Everyone has a point in their life where they're at a job and they say, hey, I can no longer do this. And it takes them a couple of weeks to figure it out or a month and they've packed it in, they're done. We've all done this in relationship. It's over. I'm going to break up with this person. Maybe not today, but in the next week or 2. It's over. Something happens and you're done. Aaron Rodgers is done with Green Bay, and Green Bay's too stupid to realize it. Green Bay is too stupid to realize it. So, my question to all the fans out there is simple. If you're Cleveland, you're not giving up too much because all you're really doing, if you break this trade down, all you're really doing is you're taking Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield for Aaron Rodgers because you're getting Odell Beckham Jr. So you're getting these 2 guys, and all you're giving up if you're Cleveland is Kareem Hunt. That's all you're giving. It's a win-win all the way around. I just created the best trade right on the fly here. Right on the fly. Yeah, Greg wants me to put a paper bag over my head. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up with that trade. Again, one more time. Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., and Kareem Hunt for Aaron Rodgers, and then you trade away the number 1 pick if you're the Packers, and you get Julio Jones. So basically, Aaron Rodgers in Cleveland next year would be an AFC championship. They're better. I mean, think about this. Cleveland got better last year, and they almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Now, I know there was a backup quarterback, blah, 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 whatever. But tell me how this doesn't make Cleveland, who right now is the best team in the AFC on paper, how it doesn't make them a favorite to win the Super Bowl. And let's be honest here. All I want Tom Brady to lose the Super Bowl. I don't care if he gets there. I want him to lose. Yeah, I know. But I will say this, Greg, if you're giving up Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt, and Baker Mayfield, salaries could work. Throwing another player here or there, the salaries could work. I like that deal. I like it. I think that's a tremendous deal. I mean, I'm excited about this, and I just created this on the fly because again, Packer fan. I don't want Aaron Rodgers back, and I don't know what the Packers brass is thinking. Why would you want Aaron Rodgers back? He doesn't want to be there. He's outgrown the Green Bay Packers. He's outgrown them. That's what I would do. I think it's going to be very interesting. Some people are saying Miami, so maybe he'll go to Miami. Let's bring on Chris Rosvoglou. Chris, how are you doing today?
Monte, I'm doing well. I miss you. I haven't talked to you in a while, but I hope all's well with you.
Everything's going well. So, Chris, I don't know if you saw the beginning, just my last rant there. So, first, give me your thoughts on where you think Aaron Rodgers and Julio Jones are going to end up.
So the Aaron Rodgers thing is like the most difficult for me to figure out because I still feel like at the end of the day, he will be back. And I know, there's a different report every single hour, but I just find it tough for Green Bay to just completely move on. I mean, they were literally a quarter away from the Super Bowl. And if you have to find or make a move to pacify Rodgers for this year, I think you do it. If you have to give him extra money for this year, I think you do it. I just think it's tough. And it also puts the team in a bad spot because let's say you rush Jordan Love's development, then you're also not just affecting your present, you're affecting your future. So I think they'll figure it out. As for Julio, obviously it seems like he's gone. I think there's so many teams, and I think for the Falcons, they have the luxury of sending him to the AFC. I mean, if you think about the teams that are always linked to him, whether it's Tennessee, I know yesterday Jeremy Fowler was saying maybe Baltimore. I think those are teams that I would look at. I would love to see him possibly, and this is the unbiased approach here, and I know he'd be staying in the NFC, but I think San Francisco would be fascinating. Throw him with Kittle, throw him with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. But if I had to guess, I kind of think that it's either going to be Tennessee or Baltimore.
Okay, so I just proposed this trade right now on the air. I'm the Cleveland Browns. I trade. Forget about draft picks because you don't need to do draft picks here. I'm the Cleveland Browns. I offer Baker Mayfield, Kareem Hunt, and Odell Beckham Jr. to the Green Bay Packers for Aaron Rodgers, and then the Packers use one of those first-round draft picks, and they go out and get. Cleveland uses one of their first-round draft picks, and they go out and get Julio Jones. How is that not a win for Cleveland? And how is that you're not going to get more for Aaron Rodgers? You're going to get draft picks. You're getting a Pro Bowl running back in Kareem Hunt, a Pro Bowl wide receiver in Odell Beckham Jr., and a starting quarterback in Baker Mayfield.
That would be really fascinating. That's the type of trade that shifts the whole league. And from Cleveland's perspective, I think it's really interesting because I mean, they were literally a player or two away from making the AFC Championship game, and obviously Rodgers' huge upgrade over Baker. But I agree with you. If you're Green Bay, the thing that puts them in a tough spot, and it's why I kind of think the Rodgers trade is tricky. You're not going to get. I mean, I know Rodgers is still great, but I don't know if you're going to get the value that you should get for Aaron Rodgers. And I think from the trade that you just hypothetically suggested, you're upgrading wide receiver 2. You're still getting a very good starting caliber quarterback. I don't know if they necessarily might want Kareem Hunt, but hey, because they have A.J. Dillon and
right, so you could be like a third team get involved there.
Yeah, maybe, or if you're Green Bay, maybe there's another player that interests you on Cleveland's roster. I mean, it's a really talented team, so I think there's options there. I know actually ESPN even weeks ago suggested, hey, Baker and a couple of picks for Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying it would happen, but it is fascinating. But I love that scenario that you just brought up, and then for Cleveland to kind of double dip and then go get Julio Jones, it figures out the wide receiver problem. You upgrade a quarterback, and you still have Nick Chubb to carry your backfield.
So it's unbelievable. They're the AFC. They're in the AFC Championship game 3 to 4 years in a row. All right, that's just one of my fantasies right there. Let's talk about the Saints. Before we get into all the offseason moves, I want to talk about the draft because there were certain things I like, certain things I didn't like. With the number 28 pick, they selected defensive end Peyton Turner from the University of Houston. In 2020, he was the captain. He led Houston with 10.5 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, 25 tackles in just 5 games. This guy appears to be an absolute ball hawk and playmaker. Did you like the pick? Did you think they were going to go this route?
Well, truthfully, Monte, I didn't think they were going to go defensive end in the first round at all. Like from everything that the Saints were talking about, it kind of seemed like they wanted a corner and they wanted to move up for a corner, whether it was J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain. It kind of seemed like they wanted to make a move of that caliber. And then I thought, okay, if they didn't do that, maybe they'd get a Caleb Farley or a Greg Newsome in the middle 20s. But that didn't happen either because Tennessee and Cleveland went that direction. So it kind of left me in a weird spot where I wasn't thinking defensive end at pick 28, and that's what happened. As for whether or not I like the pick, I like the pick and I don't like the pick at the same time. I like it because I think the film is impressive. I think Peyton Turner's got the NFL body that you want. I think with the Saints, they've developed defensive linemen really well over the past few years. We just saw it last season with Trey Hendrickson. The flip side, though, is he is a little bit similar in terms of his body style to Marcus Davenport, who
that's exactly they're similar that way, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the Saints haven't had success with Davenport. Now, there's a multitude of reasons why. He's been injured. He doesn't necessarily, people say, love the game as much as other players, which is fine. Not everyone has to love the game of football. You can just be extremely talented. So I think that does worry me a tad, but it is a position of need, so I can't knock that. And whether Saints fans want to admit it, Cam Jordan's not getting any younger. So eventually you need to replace your best defensive end. So I think there are reasons to be optimistic. There's reason to like the pick. But if I'm speaking truthfully, I just didn't think they were going to go defensive end at 28.
And I didn't plan this because John wore black, Chris wore black, and I'm wearing black. So we're the men in black today. We did not plan this. We did not coordinate it. All right, let's go to the second pick. From what I'm hearing about Pete Werner is that he is a very good cover guy in the linebacker position. He's extremely athletic. He doesn't look it, but he's bigger than I thought at 6'2", 245. Played 47 games as a Buckeye. Were you happy with this pick?
I was happy with this pick, which is funny because the Who Dat Nation was not happy with this pick because Saints fans, most of them being from Louisiana, they wanted Jabril Cox from LSU.
Yes. They actually were not happy with this pick.
Yeah, not one bit. And I'm going to be honest with you, I actually do like the pick. One, it was a huge position of need. Without Quan Alexander, he tore his Achilles, then he got released. So the Saints did need a linebacker next to Demario Davis. And two, I think the thing about Pete Werner is he might not wow you, but he does a lot of things decently well. And I think the Saints can just use a guy who is consistent, knows where to be, knows his role. The one thing I want to see, though, which kind of confuses me about Pete Werner, his pro day, great numbers across the board. His 40 time was excellent. I don't think he plays as fast as his 40 time might indicate, but he's really good in the run. They can use him in blitz situations, which is something that Dennis Allen really, really likes to do. And I think that Pete Werner does well enough in coverage. I saw against Freiermuth, he had a couple of nice pass breakups. So, and that's one of the premier tight ends from this class. So I think there's, some optimism. He reminds me a little bit of James Laurinaitis with the Rams back then. I don't know if that's what it'll end up becoming. I think the Saints would take that for a second round pick, but I think this pick was one that I wasn't confused by. I actually said before the day two start, I said, hey, Pete Werner's a guy that the Saints might look at. So I think that the pick, there's a lot to like about him, and it's a position to need.
You know, it's funny because you bring up a good point. I say this about RJ Barrett of the Knicks right now. I say RJ Barrett is not great at anything, but he's good at several things. I think Pete Werner is not great at anything, but he's good at a lot of different things.
Yeah, I agree. Monte, I'm a Knicks fan, so I agree with that RJ take that you just had. So
okay, we'll get into the Knicks at the end here because I got killed on Twitter because I said that the Hawks are going to win the series in my article. I've been talking about it on my shows. I just think the Hawks have too much offense, but we'll save that at the end and we can give you your pick. One of the things I didn't like is here in the 4th round with Ian Book. I think this is a waste of a pick. He's never going to see the field. You have two guys in Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill who are going to get – why waste a pick on Ian Book, who most people didn't have going to the 5th or 6th round?
Look, I don't disagree with you. And actually, when the pick went in and it kind of came up on my Twitter feed, I just tweeted, wow. Like, I didn't know what to say about the pick because I watched a lot of Notre Dame games, and this is not a knock on Ian Book, but he always seemed like one of those really good college quarterbacks, but just didn't have the tools to be an NFL quarterback. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the two of us are wrong. but it just seems like he has a lot to overcome. And in terms of the logic behind this pick, what I was told, and this is what a lot of reporters who were inside the building were saying, is that this is a pick where Sean Payton's saying, hey, it's the 4th round. I don't necessarily know if we're going to get a great player. So if we're going to take a gamble on the quarterback position. But the league is changing. You don't really find good quarterbacks in the mid rounds anymore. They're usually first round at this point. So I was a little surprised by it. I wanted the Saints at the time to go receiver, maybe offensive line. I thought there was different spots they could attack. And it's not a knock on Ian Book, but like you said, he's not seeing the field this year. So maybe that's a good thing for him. Maybe he gets a year to learn Sean Payton's system. But by year 2, you kind of want to know if this kid can play quarterback, or if he can at least be an NFL backup. If he could be like a Chase Daniel, I guess it's a decent pick. But again, that's not a high ceiling that I just laid out for him. So I was confused by the pick. I really like the kid. I really like his college resume, but I'm just not sure, between the height, not having the great arm strength, that he's going to be a player in Sean Payton's system.
I will say this. You talked about Jordan Love earlier, and I could say this for Ian Book right away. Jordan Love has not impressed in practice. We heard when Colin Kaepernick was backing up Alex Smith, what this guy is doing is incredible. We heard that about Aaron Rodgers. People were talking about Patrick Mahomes 3 weeks into training camp. So I don't think Ian Book is that type of guy. I don't think Jordan Love is that type of guy. And I gave the Saints a C on their draft, and a lot of that has to do with Ian Book, because in the 4th round, you could get a very good, serviceable offensive lineman, defensive player, maybe a tight end. Who knows? I don't understand the pick there. Am I harping on this too much?
I don't think you're harping on it too much. I think it's fair to harp on it now, and then I guess obviously we'll see the results later, but it's fair to question it, because if, let's say, the Saints are considered a win-now team, to your point, in the 4th round, there was a player, such as Brevin Jordan from Miami, a nice tight end who, hey, if the Saints wanted to bolster their receiving corps, that's a nice weapon you can add into the fold. There was a bunch of receivers that were still available at the time that were, a guy like Anthony Schwartz, I know was day 2, but you had guys like Josh Matter-Baby who were pretty nice in day 3. And I thought there were different routes. I totally agree with you. The only reason I won't completely slam the pick is because I've been wrong before, so I'll leave the good guy time to prove whether or not he could be it. But I do agree with you. I think it is a questionable pick for a team that you already had 2 quarterbacks next year. So either you're telling me that neither one of these guys is going to be it after the 2021 season, or you're just saying, let's just add one more just in case. I'm not sure what the thinking was.
Again, if it's the 5th or 6th round, no problem. But we've seen 4th round picks on defense start right away. So that's why I question it. All right, listen, I look at this Saints wide receiver core like I look at the Green Bay Packers. It's Devontae Adams, and that's it. Now, Aaron Jones is a very good running back wide receiver. Obviously, so is Kamara. You have tight ends there, like the Packers have with Tonyan, who just re-signed for the Packers and is proven to be a very good red zone guy. But where is the depth at wide receiver? Michael Thomas coming back after an injury. What are they going to do? Who's the number 2 guy?
By default, the number 2 guy is going to end up being Traquan Smith or Marquez Callaway, but I totally agree with you. And I think the wide receiver position 3, maybe 4 years ago, I kind of would ignore, in the sense that, hey, it's Drew Brees. He will make a decent receiver look good. He'll make a practice squad receiver look like a 53-man roster receiver, and you'll find a way to just massage those needs and figure it out. But I agree with you. If Michael Thomas goes down, you're basically done at the wide receiver spot. And it's similar to Green Bay, although Green Bay is fortunate enough that they still have Rodgers, at least so we think. But New Orleans, you saw what happened last year. It's just the offensive attack wasn't good. Now with a new quarterback, whether it's Jameis or Taysom Hill, that's a lot of pressure on either one of them if Michael Thomas goes down. And the problem is, when I look at this receiving corps, and it's why people really need to start paying attention to this Saints depth chart, it's a lot of ifs. It's if Traquan Smith gets better, if Deontay Harris can stay
healthy. Too many
healthy.
question marks for a team that wants to compete for the NFC Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. The only guy, like you said, on the Saints depth chart at wide receiver that you know what you're going to get in, week out, is Michael Thomas. And then it's 3 guys who I like, but I don't love. And neither one of them have ever shown me enough to say, okay, you can be a wide receiver 2. I think they have Michael Thomas, maybe 2 wide receiver 3s, and I'm being generous by saying 2, and a wide receiver 4, but there's a huge gap at wide receiver 2.
So my question to you is, Sean Payton is considered an offensive guru. He is sometimes we talked about this with Hill coming in and his game management, but if he's an offensive coach and Drew Brees, we'll get to in a minute, is leaving, why not go after a wide receiver in the 2nd, 3rd round? Why, or the 2nd round? Why did you go defense when you desperately need a number 2 wide receiver?
I was banging that drum. And then it goes to your point, Monte, in the 4th round. Well, if you really need one, just take one in the 4th round. Then there's some decent value there. A couple of guys who maybe are day 2 fringe guys.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris. It goes against everything Sean Payton stands for in offense.
It does. And unfortunately, though, it's been a thing. So the crazy thing was, the Saints took a wide receiver. His name was Kwan Baker in the 7th round. But again, that is such a risk. 7th round, you don't know what you're getting. But here's the crazy part. Kwan Baker was the first wide receiver they've taken since the 2018 draft. So they've been neglecting this position for the last couple of years. And time in, time again, every single time they get to the playoffs, if Michael Thomas gets bottled up, no one else is open. And there you go. The offense just starts, they struggle to get 20 points in a playoff game, which is a big issue. So I agree. This is a position of need that the Saints continue to ignore. I have no answer for why they continue to do it. I don't know if Sean thinks that he doesn't need great, ingredients to make something good, but he's got to realize that this offense has not had a legitimate wide receiver 2 since I'd say the 2018 season with Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah, no, great points there, and I'm shocked that he's doing it. Bill Belichick has whiffed on wide receivers for years. I don't know what Sean Payton's. I thought for sure, hey, they need to get a number 2 guy. They need to. Emmanuel Sanders came in last year. He was good, had some decent games, but he's gone now. So I thought, after losing Breeze, they would definitely try to make it easier for their quarterback. Okay, but before we get on the field, are you worried that losing Drew Brees' leadership, Drew Brees in the locker room? Jameis Winston cried when Drew Brees announced his retirement. This is a guy who's hunting for Drew Brees' job. So obviously, I know Drew Brees said some things about, the flag and standing, the national anthem, blah, blah, blah. But the players seem to love him. We've seen his pregame speeches. Are you worried about the leadership that Drew Brees is leaving?
I'm not too worried about that. There's things that I'm definitely worried about with them not having Drew Brees on the field this year. The only reason I wouldn't be too worried about the leadership part is I think they have too many guys, whether it's DeMario Davis or Malcolm Jenkins or Teron Armstead, that they've been through so much and they're such experienced guys and they're team captains and they know how to just right the ship. And because the Saints have missed Drew Brees for 9 games over the last 2 years, I think it makes them a little bit more comfortable with the idea that, hey, when Drew isn't there, they can handle things. I do think they're 100% going to miss him in certain things. And I think without Drew, I don't necessarily think that they're able to overcome heartbreaking loss in the playoff after heartbreaking loss. But I do think there's enough veterans in this locker room, like the ones I mentioned, that they'll be able to keep things afloat. And I'm not worried about them having any rifts within the locker room. Where they'll miss Brees 100%, though, there's certain plays on the field, even with the diminished arm strength, that they'll miss him, whether it's a 2-minute drill or whether it's coming back in the 4th quarter. There's just things that you can't replace. And those are the things that will bother me the most and you'll miss the most about the Saints. But I think the locker room's they're a pretty tight group, and I think Sean Payton's going to have them ready.
All right. So if Jameis Winston is a starter, which we all expect him to be, are we talking, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, less than 10 interceptions? That's the biggest question mark with Winston is he fumbles too much. He looks at his number 1 wide receiver too much down the field, and turnover machine. You think being under Peyton and Brees these last couple of years, he's matured? Or are you expecting big things from him?
I'm not expecting necessarily big things from him, but I'm definitely expecting better than what we saw in Tampa Bay. And the reason being is I don't think the Saints are going to put too much pressure on him. I think for the first time, he's got a consistent running game, which is something he really never had in Tampa Bay. And ironically enough, once he leaves Tampa Bay, they get it going with the ground game. So I think that he'll be a little bit better in terms of the production that I'm expecting. I think a fair number in terms of passing yards, especially because it's now a 17-game regular season. Why can't he throw for 4,000 yards? We've seen him throw for 5,000. I think 4,000 in that ballpark is fair enough for him. I think he'll be able to hit that 28 to 30 touchdown mark. It's the interceptions for me. And I don't think he's going to be under 10. I just think you can't completely change a guy like Jameis Winston. He's a gunslinger by nature. And because of that, he's going to have a couple of turnover-worthy plays almost every single game. But can you get him to 15 or less? I know 15 is still a lot of interceptions. But if you can get him to 15 or less interceptions, I think the Saints are in a spot where they're okay. And the reason I say that is they went 3-1 with Taysom Hill at quarterback. Taysom Hill was not that impressive. So I think if Jameis Winston can play okay football, maybe give you numbers similar to what like a Jimmy Garoppolo gave the 49ers 2 years ago, I don't think that'd be terrible for the Saints. I think Winston, he'll give you enough explosive plays, but I don't expect him to just cut out the turnovers because people forget, and you mentioned it, it's not just the interceptions. He fumbles a lot too. Like he's just
fumbles
a turnover
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I listen. Brett Favre. I'm not comparing Brett Favre to Jim, but Brett Favre was a gunslinger to the very end. Even his last game against Minnesota, when he was in Minnesota, threw a terrible interception in overtime. Brett Favre was a constant mistake waiting to happen. And again, I say 10 interceptions because I think Sean Payton's going to put him in the best situation. Now, my question to you is, if you're a betting man, 17 games, if I say the over under for the Saints is 11 and a half wins, what are you taking?
I'm probably going with the under, and that doesn't mean that I don't think the Saints are going to be good. I just think 11 and a half is pretty strong for a team that is losing Drew Brees, but not just losing Drew Brees. They are losing Janoris Jenkins. They are losing Emmanuel Sanders. They are losing Quan Alexander. They're losing a couple of pieces, and while they have replaced it, they've replaced it with a lot of unknowns, whether it's a rookie, whether it's a Jameis Winston, and I'm just not 100% sure that's going to carry over. Now, I do think the Saints team still has a lot of talent and enough playmakers where, hey, if things go right with Jameis Winston, why can't they be 11-6 or 10-7? And that should be a wild card team. But we got to remember their schedule's a little bit challenging. They are playing for second place, in my opinion, in the division, because I do think it's the Buccaneers division, at least for now. And I think with all that being said, I can't see them not winning the division and finishing with more than 11 and a half wins. So I think this is an 11-6 or 10-7 ball club, and that leaves me betting the under.
Okay, so 11-6, 10-7, they make the playoffs. Let's say Winston has 3,300 yards, 25 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. What are you doing next year at the quarterback position? Is this a one-year tryout for these two guys?
I tell everyone this, and I don't try to say it just to be naive. I just feel like it's what's going to happen. I think Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, whoever starts, they would need to be exceptional for the Saints to bring him back the following year. And the reason I say that is because I think the Saints, they have a lot of picks next season, whether it's comp picks and just not trading any future assets this year. I can see them being extremely aggressive to get their quarterback, whether it's via trade, whether it's trading up in the draft, and maybe they go after Russell Wilson or go after an Aaron Rodgers, or they just trade up and move up for a Sam Howell or Keaton Slovis. I think it's just the Saints need to see someone be really, really good in their system to go ahead and do it. And I don't know if let's say 25 touchdowns and 10 picks is going to be enough for Sean Payton to say, okay, I want this guy leading my offense for the foreseeable future. And that's kind of why I also turn a little bit and question the Ian Book pick, because that makes me think, hey, Sean wants another guy in the building who's going to know the system for the 2022 season in case one or even both of Taysom and Jameis are not in the building. So I think they would need to play so well. And I'm talking maybe 35 touchdowns and maybe 12 picks for Jameis, for them to say, okay, we want this guy back, because there is a lot of unknown with him. And I think the telling point for me is what the Saints gave Jameis Winston, because if they really think he's the future, I don't know if you give him a $3 million base salary with a bunch of incentives, because if that's the case, if you really think he's that good, what if someone else beat your offer and you lost him in free agency? That just kind of makes no sense to me. So I'm a little skeptical of Jameis or Taysom Hill coming back as the quarterback for the Saints in 2022, unless they just absolutely just ball out, lead this team to 11 or 12 wins, and it's mostly because of them. And I just don't see that happening.
It's interesting being a Saints fan now, right? Because for the first time in over a decade, you're unsure about your quarterback position.
Yeah, it's such a weird feeling. It really is. It's the weirdest thing, because the one thing you knew about the Saints, even when they weren't good and they're winning 7 games, was, hey, we got our quarterback figured out. And the one thing they don't have figured out right now is the quarterback position. And it's a weird spot. I think the only thing that helps out the Saints is that they have a coach that does a good job of making even, I'd say, mediocre quarterbacks look above average or very serviceable. And I think that's going to help them, especially for this upcoming season. But it's so weird. I almost kind of hate it in a sense. And it's funny because being in New York, I've witnessed Jets fans just complain about their quarterbacks nonstop. So I can't really complain. They've been doing it for a while.
No, it's amazing because there's so few franchise who make the seamless transition. Obviously, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. You look at Peyton Manning leaves, they get Andrew Luck. Joe Montana, Steve Young. It doesn't happen often where you have a legendary quarterback and then another legendary quarterback replaces him. I mean, the Broncos went to the Super Bowls with John Elway. It took them a long time to get Peyton Manning. And when they got him and went to the Super Bowl the 2 times, one, he was good. The last time they went to the Super Bowl, he was a game manager. So it's hard to replace a legend. It takes a long time. Okay, you're a betting man. Is Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill the starting quarterback after this season?
I'm going to say no. I don't know. It's just a gut feeling that I have right now. I just think neither one's going to be back I think maybe Taysom Hill in a gadget role would be back for 2022, but I just don't think Jameis Winston would be back unless he lights up the league, and I'm just not so sure he does that. And remember, I mean, the Saints saw enough from Teddy Bridgewater that was really good, and Drew Brees was thinking about retiring after the 2019 season, and the Saints didn't think, all right, yeah, let's force Drew out and bring in Teddy Bridgewater, and he's younger. I just think that, and Teddy played decently well in the games that he started for Drew Brees. So I think that the Saints they're going to want to be aggressive, whether it's acquiring a veteran quarterback or moving up in the draft. I just really think that they're going to do that. I mean, we're looking at a team that a couple years ago, they wanted to trade up, not trade up, but at 11, they wanted to take Patrick Mahomes. And if Kansas City doesn't trade up to go to 10, then the rumor is that the Saints would have taken them. So I think Sean wants a younger quarterback, and I think at some point he's going to get that guy.
All right. So who other than Tampa Bay, I've been saying this, okay, the Browns, but in the NFC, what are some of the teams that really concern you? Do you think the Rams, now that they have, their quarterback and they got rid of Jared Goff, are they a team that scares you? From all I'm hearing is Trey Lance is killing it. Again, it's rookie camp. I mean, it's early. We don't know what's going on. But to you, out of all these four quarterbacks in the rookies view, I'll ask you this question, then we'll talk about the NFC. Out of all the young quarterbacks, who has the best chance to succeed? Would you say it's Trevor Lawrence? Would you say it's Trey Lance? Would you say it's Justin Fields? I think Justin Fields in Chicago is going to start right away, and he's going to make a huge impact. Out of all the rookie quarterbacks, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact?
Biggest impact for this year, I still think it's got to be Trevor Lawrence. I know it's the safe pick, and he's going to be, it's kind of unfair to say the number one pick is going to have the biggest impact. I just think that he's such a safe guy, and I think that Jacksonville has solid enough weapons. They have a nice running back duo for him now with Robinson and Etienne, and I know people were questioning the pick, but at least he does have two good running backs by his side. He does have DJ Chark, so he has weapons. In terms of best situation, though, I think Trey Lance fell into a great situation. I mean, he's got a great head coach. He's got great weapons. He's got a great running game. I think they could find a way to make life very, very easy for him whenever they decide to start him. As far as other impact in terms of second, since we don't know when Trey Lance will start, I do agree. I think Justin Fields is going to have an impact, whether it's good or bad. I mean, he's going to have to get on the field because if you're Chicago, you cannot go into this season with Andy Dalton starting and a significant amount of games. I just think that's unfair to the fan base, especially after the whole year they had where, hey, we might trade for Russell Wilson or, hey, we might do this. And for them to start Andy Dalton for most of the season, that would be ridiculous. So I think Justin Fields would be really interesting to see where he is. And I don't know what's going to happen with Mac. I really don't know if he's even going to start at any point this year, but he's someone that I'm intrigued by. And I'll go on the flip side real quick. I know this wasn't the point, but I think the guy in the worst situation, and it's not his fault, I am a little skeptical about what will happen with Zach Wilson just because they're the Jets, and if things can go bad, they will go bad. But I think Lance, Lawrence, and Fields are the guys that I'm probably looking at a lot this year.
I lost my mind earlier, and I'm so glad you're on the show because, and I want to ask you this question. I understood because Drew Brees' arm strength wasn't what it once was. I understood that Drew Brees wasn't the scrambler or runner that Taysom Hill was. But they're talking about bringing in Tim Tebow on third down situations and in the red zone. Tim Tebow sucked as an NFL quarterback. I went on this in my opening rant. Trevor Lawrence is a better passer and a better runner, but because Urban Meyer is best friends with Tim Tebow, he wants to prove the NFL wrong, that they were wrong about this guy. Why the hell would you take Trevor Lawrence, who's a better passer and a better runner on third down and goal line situation, and limit his growth to bring in a guy who can't throw and can't run?
I totally agree with you. I think, Tebow's a great guy. It's a fun story. It's going to generate headlines for the next 2 months, 3 months, whatever it might be. But if Urban Meyer thinks that he can get away with doing this, and look, this is us speculating that this happens, but let's say it does happen. I don't know. I'm not worried about stunting Trevor Lawrence's growth, but I'd be worried about how the locker room's going to feel about, you're taking our best player off the field to put Tim Tebow out there. And who even knows if the play works and what, to gain a yard, gain 2 yards. And that's why I laugh, because Tebow, and look, the Taysom Hill stuff is weird. Don't get me wrong. I totally agree. At times it was a little confusing. But Taysom Hill's 5 times a better athlete than Tim Tebow. He's faster. He's 50-year. And
Tebow hasn't played in 12. He hasn't played since 2012. What are we doing here, Urban? What are we doing?
Yeah, and I think for Trevor Lawrence, imagine as a rookie, you're playing well, or you're trying to get into rhythm, and you can't get into rhythm because Tim Tebow, who decided I'm going to wake up and I want to be a tight end at 32 years old, is all of a sudden going to do that. I just think it would be unfair to the rookie. I think the locker room would be really frustrated with it. So I hope for Urban's sake he doesn't do that, because that would be a weird message and a weird way of coaching in your first year when everyone's trying to wonder if you can make that jump from college to the pros. I think that'd be a really bad way of, one, proving his doubters right, and two, making guys look at him a little different.
All right, Chris, finally, and then we'll get to the Knicks stuff. Other than the Tampa Bay Bucks, what teams scare you going into this season?
I'm going to be honest. You could pick anyone from the NFC West, and I'd probably say they scare me. I think with Seattle, as long as they have Russell Wilson, they're going to be a threat. Whether or not they do anything in the playoffs is a different story, but they'll always be a threat. I think the 49ers roster is incredible. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback, whether they start Jimmy and maybe bring Trey Lance later, or maybe just start Trey Lance from the get-go. Who knows? But the roster's so talented, and they have such a good receiving corps, and their defense is going to be back with Bosa and them, so I expect a lot. You mentioned the Rams before. That's one of them, because I think the Rams last year, the only thing that made me hesitate from saying, oh, this is a Super Bowl contender, is Jared Goff was not playing good football. Well, now they upgraded a quarterback, and they upgraded in a big way. And I think if Stafford just hits stride with McVay, I think this is going to be a dangerous team. And people kind of forget they added a lot of speed at wide receiver this offseason. They added Deshaun Jackson. They drafted Tutu Atwell. If just one of them turns into a big play threat, you add that with the Cooper Kupp, and you add that with Robert Woods and what they got going, I think this is going to be a really good team. And I think Cam Akers, who started off slow but really picked it up at the end of the season, he could give the Rams a nice ground game, kind of give them a balanced offense. So I would say them. I'm still saying Green Bay. That's a team that scares me if Aaron Rodgers is there. As long as Rodgers is there, I think him, LaFleur, and that Packers team, you could pencil them in for the playoffs. So I would say the Packers and pretty much any NFC West team, in addition to the Bucs, are the ones that scare me.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about our Knicks. Listen, I had Atlanta beating them, and it's a simple equation. Atlanta has 8 guys who could create their own shot and score. The Knicks have 2.5. Okay, and I say 2.5 because Julius Randle has been terrible. RJ Barrett has not played well. Derrick Rose, I was wrong about. He has totally evolved his game. He's not looking to get to the rim. He's got a very good mid-range game. But let's be honest here, Chris. Talent-wise, it's not even close. This Atlanta Hawk team reminds me of the young Golden State Warriors. They have guys who Bogdanovich in the second half of the season, the only person who hit more threes was Steph Curry. And then you had Trae Young. Why haven't the Knicks knocked Trae Young into next week? Because he's getting into the paint left and right.
I can't understand it for the life of me with the way they're guarding Trae Young. It makes no sense. And Bogdanovich has been incredible. I feel like every time the Knicks will have a little bit of a surge, Bogdanovich will have an answer every time in this series. Yeah. And he's just so talented. And I agree with you. If you look at the Knicks team, they're really not that talented. And the reason I say that is if you look at every game where they've kind of had an outburst, game 2, it comes from Reggie Bullock. Game 1, it was Alec Burks in the fourth quarter. These are not household names that are making big plays for the Knicks. These are guys who are really role players just for one game or two, really stepping up. And for the Knicks, and look, I thought the Knicks would win this series in 7, and it's still very possible. And of course, that's just, my bias slipping in a little bit, but they're not going to win this series if Julius Randle continues to shoot 26% from the field. It's just not possible. He's been atrocious. RJ Barrett's not been good, and Derrick Rose has been their best player, and that's not a knock on Derrick Rose, but Derrick Rose in 2021, with the way he plays basketball now, should not be your best player on a playoff team. That's just a recipe for disaster. So I agree. The way it's looking right now, and we'll find out today, obviously, when the game happens, because the Hawks can basically give him a knockout punch today. I think that it's looking like it's going in the Hawks' favor. I mean, all their role players are playing well. Trae Young, people didn't talk about it. Game 3, I think he effortlessly put up 21 and 14. I mean, that was one of
them. Yeah, no.
Effortlessly. And I think he only had 2 turnovers, and it goes back to your point.
Chris, why aren't they hitting him? When he gets to the lane, why aren't they fouling him? He's been untouched, at least. And one of the things I don't understand about Tibbs, when they run that high screen, like, why not just double team him? We see the Lakers do this with Steph Curry, with Damian Lillard, with Harden. They're not even double teaming him. It's like they're almost saying, okay, Trey, we don't believe you're going to beat us, but it's been 3 games. He's kicking your ass.
Yeah, absolutely. At some point, the Knicks just have to have the let anyone else but Trae Young beat you, and you live with the consequences. If Gallinari's going to start hitting shots, you live with it. If Lou Williams starts dropping 20 on you, you live with it. But when it's Trae Young going over 30 for the first 2 games, and then an incredible double-double in the second game with 14 assists, only 2 turnovers, you got to change up your approach. And I agree with you in terms of hitting him. Look, the Knicks want to complain about the way the refs are officiating, and okay, fine, maybe he gets a couple of fouls. If you're going to get called for foul, you might as well get your money's worth with how you're going to foul him. So yeah. I think that the Knicks, with the way they're approaching this series, I never thought that a Tom Thibodeau coach team would struggle to figure out how to at least minimize the impact of the opposing team's best player. But it's insane to me. I think if Trae Young wanted to go out and score 40 with the way the Knicks are guarding him, he could do it easily. It's whether or not he wants to take that many shots. So He's getting his. I don't think the Knicks are almost, and this comes back to almost game 2, actually. Sometimes they're not respecting how good this guy's range is. The minute he gets over half court, you have to think he's a threat to score. The minute he gets over, and the Knicks aren't recognizing that. They're going over the screens like you mentioned, and anytime you do that, he's gonna make you pay, Trae Young. So I think it's very frustrating. If it continues, and I'm pessimistic about game 4, especially after the way game 3 went in the first half of game 2. I just don't see it, because right now the Hawks' best players, like you mentioned, whether it's Trae Young, whether it's Bogdanovich, and even Capella on the defensive side of the floor, they're stepping up. And you look at the Knicks, Randall's not showing up. Barrett's not playing that well. There's not much to look at right now with this team.
No, and one of the things I love is the 5th option on that team is Clint Capella. He's averaging 15 and 14. And I wrote an article last year about this. I said Trae Young at this stage of his career is way better than Steph Curry. Steph Curry didn't average 25 points until his 5th season. Trae Young averaged 29 and 9 2 years ago. This year he's averaging 25. He's 2nd in assists. He's 1st in made free throws. And I just don't understand. Like, you have Noel, you have Gibson, you have Quigley, you have guys coming off the bench who can give up fouls, who can foul Trae Young every time. And I know you don't want to put him to the line, but for God's sake, he's doing that little teardrop every time. Knock him into next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Even game 1, I think game 1 should have been the message, and just put it on a board and just watch it 10 times over. The way if Trae Young's going to hit a game winner, it's fine. The game winner he hit in game 1 was a little ridiculous. Just blows by Ntilikina, gets to the rim, like you said, just a routine floater.
By the way, let me just say this. Why are you bringing in Ntilikina when he hasn't played? Tom Thibodeau's supposed to be a defensive genius. And what I hated about this is game 1 going back to Atlanta Hawks brings in 5 players, all guards and Gallinari. And he brings in Gibson. Gibson shouldn't have been out there. Then with 0.9 seconds left, I know RJ Barrett hasn't played well, but he puts Gibson in there who's not going to shoot a 3. Like, he's putting Taj Gibson there at the end of both when he didn't need to be there. So for all this talk about Thibodeau being a defensive genius, he's made terrible decisions throughout the course of this series.
Yeah, no, he has. And the defense has been terrible. And it's just so funny when they put in Frank for the end of game 1. Trae Young is the fastest guy on the floor. And to take a guy who hasn't played a single minute of the game, he's got cold feet, and you say, okay, you got to guard Trae Young. The game's on the line here. I just don't understand the thought process. Put anyone else in the game, someone who's been in the game, doesn't have cold feet, can keep up with Trae for a little bit. It's frustrating. They haven't made good adjustments. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think game 2, had the Hawks hit about 5 open threes in the 4th quarter, it's probably a 3-0 series lead for Atlanta.
Yeah, no, they missed open looks. And I said this after game 1. I said, it's fool's gold. You cannot get up running down. I used to coach, and we averaged we were 3rd in the country in scoring. We averaged like 97 points a game. And I mentioned this last week. We would play teams, and we'd be down 66-60 at halftime, and we'd laugh because they only scored 74 points a game. In the second half, they couldn't keep it up. When you see Burke scoring over 20 points and role players score, and you lose that game, it's fool's gold. The Knicks can't get up and outscore the Hawks. They have to beat them 90-85.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 1000% agree, because like we said with this Knicks roster, there's just so many. They're all role players, if we're being honest. I know Randall was an all-star this year, and that's fine, but for the most part, this team just compiled of 7 to 8 role players who they can give you 10 here, they can give you 12 here, but you're never going to get great consistency. So I agree. Meanwhile, Atlanta, you're probably going to get 30 or close to 30 tonight from Trae Young. The way Bogdanovich is playing, he's going to get you 20. You still got Lou Williams off the bench. You have a very underrated
Hunter and Collins can score
Hunter.
20 with Gallinari. I mean, it's a joke how much talent they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. The one strength that would have kept the Knicks making this a really fun series, and you feel like they'd have the edge, was defensively. But right now, it seems like good offense is beating good defense, at least this whole series. And we'll see what happens today. But with the way the last 3 games have gone, I know the Knicks have been able to win 1. The Hawks have looked like the better team for, I'd say, what is it? What do we have? 12 quarters of action? I said they've been the better team for about 10 of them.
Yeah, no, and this is why I said it when I was just breaking this series down, and I'm going to talk about that in my extra point. How the Knicks fans are just all actors, people who are like, "What are you doing, Monte?" And I'm like, "Look, I'm not. You cannot win an NBA championship. You cannot get to the NBA Eastern Conference with Julius Randle as your number 1 option, Chris. I'm sorry."
No, you can. And there's nothing to apologize with it, because it's the truth. Because if we look at every team and we kind of think about the teams that will probably be in the conference finals, well, If the Lakers get there, they got LeBron and Anthony Davis. If the Clippers get there, they have Kawhi and Paul George. If the Nuggets get there, they do have Nikola Jokic, who's probably the MVP of this season. And then if you look at the East, the 3 teams ahead of the Knicks in the standings, you got the Bucks, who have Giannis. They have Drew Holiday. They have Chris Middleton. You got the Nets. We obviously know the big 3 they have. And the Sixers, Ben Simmons is your second option. I'd say Tobias Harris, who's their third, is probably almost on the same level of a Julius Randle in the sense that they're a good player. They're not a great player. So for Randle to be your 1, Barrett's basically your 2, but really right now, Rose is your number 1 with the way the team's playing.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. That is a typical first round exit team. And I know because the Knicks are fun and it's nice to see them back in the playoffs, and MSG has been rocking for the first 2 games of the series. A lot of people got caught up in that, but this Knicks team still needs to improve. They're not anywhere close to where fans think they might be or where they need to be. And whether that's in free agency next year or in 2 years from now, they got to get a star in there, because I agree, Julius Randle on a championship team probably should be your 3rd best player. I know that sounds crazy.
100%, Chris, 100%.
Yeah, and it always goes back to the team. Like, if they win this series somehow, all right, next series they're going to verse Embiid, they're going to verse Simmons, they're going to verse Harris, they're going to verse Seth Curry. You probably rank the 5 best players in that series. 4 of them are going to be from Philly, and that can be a problem.
And Dwight Howard is, and Danny Green. Say whatever you want. Danny Green will disappear for the first 3 games, and then in a big game, he'll have 5 threes in the 3rd quarter. So it's like, I mean, again, the Knicks are a nice story. But the problem with the Knicks, and I'll close with this, and then we'll let you go. The problem with the Knicks, and I'm going to add to this, is it's from the 1990s Knicks till now, it's always a struggle on offense. Even with Carmelo, even with Patrick Ewing, they've never had easy offense. The Atlanta Hawks can have Hunter hit threes. They can have Gallinari coming off. The Knicks have never had easy offense, and this team is ugly to watch offensively.
No, it is. And I'm glad you brought up the Melo thing, because the Knicks, that Melo era, people got tricked into, okay, scoring a lot of points doesn't necessarily mean you're a great offense. And what I mean by that is, in the regular season, when you have Melo and you have Amari and you have J.R. Smith and you have all these guys who in isolation situations can just go get a bucket, that's fun and all. But then when you get to the playoffs, you actually need a good system that works, and they haven't had that. And that probably comes down to the fact that the Knicks haven't had a great point guard in God knows how long. But I agree. It's always an offensive struggle. It probably will stay that way for the next 5-10 years at least. And you're seeing now, while they struggle to get buckets, Atlanta, it's whenever they need to turn it on, okay, we can go on a run here, whether it's Trae Young creating or maybe Bogdanovich, they have a chance to do so. But I agree, this Knicks team, it's a struggle. And to make it worse, the only guy on their team that can really create for everyone else is Julius Randle. But when Julius Randle's on, when he has 20 points, 25 points, and they have to, either double team him or pay a little bit more attention, and he can set up other teammates. But right now, with the way he's shooting, I think he was 2 for 15 last game, he's not going to set up anyone because they'd rather Julius Randle shoot with the way he's playing.
Yeah, and I'll end with this. Would you agree that going into Game 4 today at 1:00, this is my philosophy. Trae Young is getting 14 points. If he gets 25 assists and we lose, we lose. I'm not letting this guy get 20 and 14. I'm not letting him get 30 and 10. We are double teaming him all over the court.
Yeah, at 1,000%. I'm double teaming. And it's not just for the Knicks, for a team that frustrates me that does that. The Clippers too. Like, I would rather Luka Doncic have 50 assists, but not let him score a damn point. But when you're scoring 40 points almost every game, it's insane. So I agree. If you're the Knicks today, especially because this game will make or break the series, if they lose this game down 3-1, I just think with the way they're playing offensively, there's no shot that they would come back. You got to make someone else beat you. Put a lot of pressure on someone else to knock down the shots, because if Trae's taking the shots, he's going to knock them down. So you got to make sure, whether it's their backups, whether it's someone off the bench, whether it's a starter, make sure Hunter knocks down the shots, or make sure that Gallo knocks down the shots. And while they may, I'd rather live with that. You live with the consequences when it's the B to C players knocking down the shots. But when you're letting the A+ player knock down open shots all game, you kind of deserve the result.
One of the things I can't stand about Tom Thibodeau is he's so stubborn. He always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, smartest guy on the court. For the love of God, double team Trae Young. All right, Chris, we love having you on. How can we follow you? How can we support you? I had the Hawks winning in 6. I think they're going to win in 5. You have the Knicks winning in 7. How can we follow you?
People can follow me on Twitter at Rosvoglou Report. They can see on the screen ROSVOGLOU Report. They can also check out my work in terms of articles and interviews on The Spun, and they can also check out any Saints news at the Straight Up Saints podcast.
All right, Chris, we love having you. Let's go, Knicks. We'll see you in a couple weeks down the road.
Sounds great. Take care, Monte.
All right, have a great Sunday. Enjoy the games. I want to thank our two guests. I want to thank John Meyer. I want to thank Chris Rosvoglou. And now we are going to end with my extra point. And listen, it's going along the same lines with what Chris just said. So I've had actors, comedians, people attacking me on Twitter because I'm supposed to be a Knick fan. Well, a lot of people were comparing Julius Randle. This is. I just want to talk about Knick fans, how they're delusional. They were comparing Julius Randle to Anthony Mason and John Starks. Okay, let me just say one thing. Anthony Mason averaged 10 points a game for his career. John Starks averaged 12 points a game. Julius Randle is a double-double machine. He averaged 25, 10. Only Knick player to average over 20 points and 10 rebounds, 5 assists. R.J. Barrett can score 17 points in his sleep. John Starks had to have a perfect game for him to score 17 points. So right then and there, the comparison goes out the window with the Knicks of old and the Knicks new. But here's the same thing, right? Here's the same thing. And here's why I picked the Atlanta Hawks to win. The Knicks have no talent. They just have guys who work hard and buy into the system. This New York Knicks team had guys past their prime, like Doc Rivers. Patrick Ewing was talented. Charles Oakley was just a beast on the boards. Mason was a good defender. Nothing came easy to those Knicks teams. And my life is the same way. So I understand how you identify with this Knicks team of the 90s or this Knicks team now. They're hardworking. I have no talent. I was telling this to my dad yesterday at lunch. I have no talent. The reason why I succeed at jobs, I work out, at the gym, and I do certain things. I ride my bike for 50 miles on a weekend, is because I outwork people at jobs, at sports. When I'm bored at home, I'm looking up stats on my phone of Major League Baseball, NBA, just so I could keep outworking people. The Knicks have a team right now that is not talented. They just outwork people. But I'm sick of it because that's my life. I have to work triple as hard to have success than most people because I don't have talent. I want someone for once on the Knicks roster to work hard and have talent. Like a Steph Curry, like a LeBron James, who are super talented and super hardworking. The Knicks don't have that. They just work hard, just like the 90s Knicks. And I'm tired of it. I want talent on my teams. That's why I picked Atlanta. Talent-wise, it's a joke. It's not even close. And I'm jealous of anyone who is super talented like LeBron James and Steph Curry and who work hard. The Knicks just work hard. That's not getting it done in the playoffs. So you can hate me, Knicks fans. You could say, oh, you're not a true fan. I'm tired. I'm tired of just working hard. I want talent. I want to root for talent. And that is my extra point. All right. Again, I want to thank Chris Rosvoglou. I want to thank John Meyer, and I want to thank you. Make sure to, click on this link. Make sure you subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. We will be back on Tuesday. Talking NBA sports with the Nuts and Bolts Sports crew. We will be talking the NBA playoffs. So make sure you want to check that out. I think by that time, this series could be over. So we will see. And in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.
The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to Team